Republicans called an entirely male panel to talk about women's health. Women did not testify until this afternoon when 2 women joined 3 more men on a second panel. Not only were the vast majority of witnesses male, they were all called to testify by Republican members because they seem to have all the answers. The Democrats' witness was rejected by committee chairman Darrell Issa. New York Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney was not pleased with Issa's decision.
Mr. Chairman, I was deeply disturbed that you rejected our request to hear from a woman, a third-year student at Georgetown Law School named Sandra Fluke. Your staff told us you personally rejected Ms. Fluke's testimony, saying that, and I quote, "The hearing is not about reproductive rights and contraception."
The entire motivation for the hearing was President Obama's rule on contraception. Darrell Issa's bogus excuse for denying the Democrats their witness proves his hearing was a complete farce. Joining me tonight is Sandra Fluke, the woman Congressman Darrell Issa rejected as a witness today. Ms. Fluke is a law student at Georgetown University. Great to have you with us tonight, Sandra. Now, I understand that you had already planned your testimony. You were going to cite some examples of people who could have benefited from President Obama's mandate for birth control coverage. Share with us what you would have told that committee today.
That is what I was there to speak to the committee about, and that's why I was so stunned when Chairman Issa made the decision to not allow me to speak on behalf of those women and to say that I was not an appropriate witness, that those women's stories were not appropriate for this committee. I cannot think of who would be more appropriate for the committee to hear from than the women who were affected by this policy, whose lives were affected. One of the women I wanted to talk about today is a close friend of mine. She has polycystic ovarian syndrome, and what that means is that she needs to take contraception for a medical reason to prevent cysts from growing on her ovaries and not to prevent pregnancy. Now, that technically means it should be covered on Georgetown student health insurance, which does not cover contraception for prevention of pregnancy. But unfortunately, when university administrators and employers and insurance companies get involved in deciding whose health needs are legitimate and whose aren't, what happens is that women's health needs take a back seat to that type of ideology. And that's what happened in her case, and we've found that that happens in 65% of the female students' cases. So for her, she was unable, they repeatedly refused her contraceptive coverage claims, and she had verification from her doctor. It didn't matter. So she had to pay out of pocket about $100 a month for her, month after month after month, and eventually she just couldn't afford it. Like many students just cannot afford that kind of a cost. And she had to stop taking it. And I have to tell you, so what happened is that after a few months of her not taking the prescription, a massive cyst grew on her ovary. And she woke up one night in the middle of the night in excruciating pain. She told me that it felt like she'd been shot. And I don't want to imagine what that felt like for her, but what ultimately happened is that she had that ovary surgically removed. She had to have it surgically removed. And as a result of that, of course, she would have problems conceiving a child, but even more, it hasn't stopped for her. She, since the surgery, has experienced symptoms of early menopause, and her doctors are very concerned that at the age of 32, she is entering early menopause, which means that there will be nothing any doctor can do to help her to conceive a child, and it will also put her at increased risk for cancer, heart disease, and osteoporosis.